Tomorrow is Martin Luther King Day, a day we have set aside in this country to remember all of the important, vital, essential work that he led in the civil rights movement, to remember and honor his life and his legacy. Too often, sometimes we can decide that because we have set aside one day a year to remember his work and his preaching and his teaching and his leading, that we have accomplished so much in civil rights. And it's easy to kind of pat ourselves on the shoulders and feel somewhat self-satisfied with the work that was done in his lifetime. That is not the way to honor his legacy, though. I think we all really, really know that. Of course, the way to honor the legacy of those who gave their all in the civil rights movement is to continue the work, to acknowledge and to recognize and to name the ways we have lost ground in the last several years. And to acknowledge and to name and to put ourselves to the work of all that yet still remains to be done. Our objective should be to desire, to long for, and to work towards the culmination of justice and righteousness for all people. Our work in this moment should be to see all that remains yet undone, to be able to truly, with unfiltered eyes, be able to see all that yet remains to be done. And then to want to join in the collective work and effort of getting to the place he called us to be. There have been many, many times in my life when I have leaned into King's assurance that the arc of the moral universe is long, but it bends towards justice. I could hold that before myself when things really went off the rails in the work of justice and in the work of compassion and righteousness, and think it's a setback. But we're going to keep getting there. In the last few years, that has been a little harder to be assured of, because it feels like the setbacks have been more significant. The distance we need to cover to get from where we are to where God longs for us to be seems further. So perhaps the real gift of this weekend and setting aside this day that we mark tomorrow isn't to feel good about how much has been accomplished, but to be renewed in our hope and our assurance that the work yet will be done. I turn to the lesson, the text that Adia read for us this morning, from the first letter to the Corinthians, written by Paul, in which he speaks about gifts and service and work and abilities. And this seems to me a really, really helpful text if we want to reclaim our assurance and our hope and our conviction that this work of justice is in fact possible, and that we have something to bring to it. Paul teaches that there are many kinds of gifts and many kinds of service and many kinds of working. Now, that's perhaps not news to any of us, in the sense that we are, most of us, highly conscious of the things we're not really great at, right? I could give you a long list of the stuff I'm not super great at. The corollary to that, though, is that there are things that you are good at. And there are things you can be great at, because that's the way we have been crafted and created by our Maker. You are gifted. You are blessed with talents and abilities and things that you can do and accomplish. You can't do everything, no question, but you absolutely can do something. You've been made that way, and you've been made that way for a reason. But you're not supposed to be doing it all on your own. There are many kinds of gifts and many kinds of service and many kinds of working, and some of them are yours, but you are called to bring them into a collective work and purpose. Paul very plainly states what that is: for the common good. That your talents and abilities are not intended for you to put to work solely for your own benefit, solely for your own good, solely for your own position and privilege, but you're to bring them into a community where they are pooled with the gifts and the talents of others who, just like you, long for the fruition of the kingdom. And when you do that, remarkable, almost miraculous things can happen. We're called to work in tandem, to work collectively for the good of all, using the unique and special talents God has given each of us. We're to recognize our own giftedness and then find a team to join so that we might build kingdom community, and so that justice and righteousness and all that is good in the world might yet be complete. We work for a larger purpose together, utilizing the unique and special talents that we bring to that party, right? One of the things that I am almost certain of happens in every community is that there somehow develops an unconscious and unspoken collusion, an agreement, if you will, that none of the members of the community enter into consciously unless they're working to pay attention to it, to either live into the highest common denominator or into the lowest common denominator. That somehow groups of people get together and they either somehow lift one another up and call forth the best from one another. Really, really ask and demand and seek out the best in one another. And somehow in that, people rise to the moment and rise to the occasion. And they accomplish so much more because so much is asked of them. And they do so with a sense of joy and enthusiasm about it. And that just happens in communities. Or the reverse happens, the alternative happens. And that's, we ask very little of one another. And somehow people come together, and when very little is asked of them, they sort of give very little, and sort of that they give without a lot of enthusiasm or joy, kind of not real sure what they have to bring matters a whole lot. Subconsciously, unconsciously, collectively, people either lift one another up, build one another up, and bring the best of themselves out of one another, or they live into the least that they can do together. You and I both know, and it's true in families and church communities and offices and all kinds of places, behaviors only exist in environments that support them. Behaviors only exist in environments that support them. This obviously has to coexist with a whole lot of grace, a lot of grace and kindness and compassion. But behaviors of excellence exist in communities and cultures and cities and apartment buildings when they are supported. And racism, sexism, intolerance, hatefulness, those also exist only in environments that support them. So who and how are we going to be in this space that we have created together as the people called Methodist here on John Street? What sort of community are we building? Will we help nurture the best in one another? Will we call out the best among ourselves? Will we name the gifts and graces that we each bring into this moment? Will we lift one another up? Will we make one another better? Or will we tolerate mediocrity, passiveness, disinterest? Will we do our best, or will we give one another permission to do our least? We really can remember to set before us this larger purpose, that the community we are building is a kingdom community intended to help nurture righteousness, to help nurture justice, to help create a space where all people are welcomed, treated well, to help be an oasis in a chaotic and hurtful world, and to eventually be a place that helps build a just world where all people have equal access to all that is good and necessary. That sounds like a big task for our little church, right? Oh, we're going to fix the world. We also have the gift, and this is one of the gifts that having tomorrow's Martin Luther Day gives us. We have the benefit of recognizing that we're not at this alone, that it's not just our little community of people who are trying to fix everything all the time here and everywhere, but we live as part of an extended community. The work we do is built on the work of those who came before us. You and I didn't build this building. They built this building so that we could do the work of justice here, now, today, in this place. They built this building for those who would come after. And we tend and care for this building in the hopes that it will be here long after we are gone, as a place of nurture and growth and hope and decency in a tumultuous city. There are those who have come before us. There are those who will come after us. We are connected to them by the grace of God. And we trust that they have brought their own gifts and talents into this work. And we should want to bring our own gifts and talents and the very best that we can accomplish into this work in our moment, in our time. What are we setting up to make happen next? Even for the nexts that are beyond our lifespan. What of our gifts are we putting to use so that the unfolding of the kingdom might continue into its culmination. So knowing and trusting that you are gifted, that you have talents and abilities for the work of the kingdom, even if you're not sure what they are, but you know that God has said you have them, so you have them. And everybody else, everybody online, every name that you see, everybody who said hello, every one of those people has talents and gifts and abilities because God has said they have. And we can't do it all alone as individuals, but we can bring our bits and pieces. When I was early in ministry, I would always worry a lot about potluck suppers. It took a few years before I just stopped worrying about it altogether. But you know, my first thought was that what happens if everybody brings desserts? What happens if everybody brings bread, right? What happens if everybody brings main dishes? You know, should we do a thing where, like, if your last name starts with A through D, you bring this, and then if your last name starts with E through M, you bring a salad. I mean, you know, and everyone looked at me who had done a lot of potluck suppers in their life like I had two heads, because that's just one of those things that works out. It's the nature of how we are, right? I'm going to make the thing I make that's really good. Jackie's going to make her salad, right? Somebody's going to make the thing they're known for, and somebody's going to make something that's entirely new that they felt like trying, and it all works out. There's so many ways in which our collective life together is like a potluck supper. We bring different things to this table. But when we all show up, when we all do our best, when some of us are trying something new and some of us are doing the thing that we know works, remarkable, amazing things happen. My brothers and sisters, that's how the kingdom gets built. We can look at this moment and be terribly worried about ground we've lost and all that yet remains to be done. But we can come also with confidence into the work, trusting and knowing that we don't go it alone. And none of us come to it unequipped. So let's ask together, what can you and I make happen? What can you and I make happen? What can you and I make happen? And then let's do that. In the name of the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Amen.